Okay everybody, so just a little breakdown on how I rig my bike up for most of my rando events. So just a little context is important. This setup is based on having bag drops most evenings. So as you know, many of you know, I try to ride pretty hard during the day and then take quite a bit of time to eat and sleep at night, as do most of the friends I ride with. But this is basically how I would set up pretty much for any ride. Even if I wasn't doing that, I was riding through the night regardless if I had a bag drop. So I'll give you a little close-up of some specifics. So as you can see on the front, I'm running the Wahoo Element computer. Got rid of my Garmin. I'm pretty much done with Garmin. I've had great success with the Wahoo, and I know quite a few rando guys have switched over when their Garmin comes end of life. I think the real unit to look for is that Hammerhead unit that's using the Android operating system. I think next year that may be the big disruptive unit. Underneath, I'm using the Taz 2000 Lite. Now again, this is predicated on the fact that I'm trying to minimize my time in the dark. So this has 2,000 lumens, which is just stupid crazy. But I can run pretty comfortably at 500 lumens. I don't have a problem with that. I might flick it up to the next setting on downhills, but typically I can get about 6 hours on that battery at 500 lumens. And if I'm using it at night, and I turn it off during the day, I can also be recharging it at the same time as I'm riding, and I'll show you how I do that. Underneath is a 2-liter handlebar bag. So I tend to prefer my load on the front versus on the back of the bike. That changes obviously when I don't have support, and I do run with a bag on the back for support, and I'll show you in the blog some pictures of that. Basically, this is a 2-liter bag. I bought it at Mech, and it's pretty good to hold most things if I've got wet and coolish conditions. So between my pockets and this bag, heavier jacket, knee warmers, arm warmers, gloves, so that works. On the top, I'm using an Apidura top tube bag, and that I use for all my food, so typically gels and some bars. I supplement quite a bit on the ride with real food. And the little packet in front is for my camera, which I'm using right now. So I used the GoPro stuff a lot, but in the end I found I was pretty restrictive in what I could take a picture of. So I've been using a waterproof Olympus sort of just tucked in there. And I can whip that out pretty quick and take some pictures. Over on... Okay, don't tell people about the belt. Over here, I put a little Velcro flap on this, and I've got a, sorry, it's not, let me get that out. I've got a 10 milliamp battery pack in there, and it's from Anchor, and that will charge my Element about at least 4 times full on. And if I'm doing a little more riding, I'm pushing into that 6-hour range, I'll do a splitter, and I can do a USB charge on the Taz Lite while it's off and while I'm riding during the day, and have it fully charged for another 6 hours at night. So that's kind of my rig. I not to get into the bike really. Everyone's got their own bikes and their own saddles, but one thing I do want to talk a little bit about is I've been experimenting with tubeless tires, and so I started last year on this. These are tubeless ready rims, and first I was not so happy, and I then figured out it was mostly because of the tires I was using. They were just really fit for racing, not for rando riding. The minute I put more robust tires on, I've had much better success. In fact, these tires, they're IRC ProGuard X Guards. They're a bit pricey, but I have not had a flat on these tires. I've had a few punctures, but the sealant has dealt with those. So I'm very, very happy with how it's going so far. Bit of a learning curve in terms of sealant and how to get them on, blah, blah, blah. and they can be a bit messy if you get a flat, like a big enough flat where the sealant doesn't work on the ride, and you have to put a tube in. You've got a lot of sealant to mess with. Although I've just bought a plug kit that a lot of guys use just to plug the holes versus taking the tire off. So I'm hoping I never have to use it, but if I do, I'll give it a try. If I do have to go into wetter and longer conditions and cooler conditions, I need more room up front, I switch to this bag, which is a 4-liter bag. It's made by a good Canadian company out of Quebec, Axiom, and that holds 4 liters. And I've actually used this with the back bag on a ride in Italy where I had no support, or just one drop bag support. The other thing that we're experimenting with, because our ride in Italy starts at midnight and we're going to need some pretty long burn times on the lights, is this Bright Eye light. It's a $100 Canadian light. Its claim to fame is 1,800 lumens. Again, pretty crazy, but it'll burn, they say, at 600 lumens it'll burn for 12 hours. Now I've tested that. It actually burned for 13 hours at that setting, which is very, very impressive. But, no offense to the Chinese, it's made in China. I don't think these guys do the same kind of lumen testing that Light in Motion do. So we're going to give it a rollout on the 400, which I'm doing tomorrow. Stephen Barbazouk's going to give it a test, and we're going to compare it to the brightness and the beam pattern on the Light in Motion, and see if this is something we may want to run in Italy. So I'll post some pictures of the rear bag that I use. There's a lot of really experienced PBP rando riders signed up so far from the club. So they should you guys feel free to pitch in and put your kind of rig up. And any comments or questions you have, just fire them on the blog, and I'll try to answer when I can.